Welcome to JavaScript Introduction. Now, we're going to cover a bit of topics, but we're going to go through the topics in modules rather in bit by bits. And I hope you're going to get every detail. It's going to be of help. So first, we're going to make, I want to make an introduction of Java in JavaScript. Well, JavaScript is one of the three major languages all web developers must learn. So among the three languages include HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, CSS. The CSS is a styling language that stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So to make it look lively, look presentable, you have to use the CSS, the Cascading Style Sheet. Then we have JavaScript. And JavaScript is a scripting language used to manipulate the behavior of your website. JavaScript is a dynamic computing programming language. It is lightweight and most commonly used as a part of web page, whose implementation allows client-side script to interact with the users and make dynamic pages. It is an interpreted programming language with object-oriented capacities. So, as a client-side programming language, JavaScript is the most common form of language. The script should be included in the referenced by HTML documents for the code to be interpreted by the browser. It means that a browser needs to be static HTML, but can include programs that interact with the user-controlled and browsers and dynamically create HTML content. The JavaScript client-side mechanism provides many advantages over traditional CGIs. Sorry about that. With that, what I'm trying to mean is JavaScript is code executed when the user submits the form. And only if all the entries are valid, they should be submitted to the web server. We have major advantages of using JavaScript. As I have put it, it's a scripting language, so it's less server interactive. You can validate user input before sending the page off to the server. This saves server traffic, which means less load on the server. Increased interactivity. You can create interfaces. Just a break. So back at it again, we're going to talk about syntax. Now we're going to talk about the whole JavaScript structure. And I just spoke about introduction. I just spoke about syntax. I'll put you on placement, data placement, data output, JavaScript comments. We're going to discuss also about variables. We're going to talk about let. Then we're going to discuss about JavaScript constructors. We will also cover about data types, sets, maps, operators, eval statements, switch case statement, loops, objects, functions, strings, numbers, array, boolean, data, math, error, validation, DOM, that is document object manipulation, classes, prototype object, constructor methods, static method, encapsulations, data inheritance, JavaScript polymorphism, JavaScript hoisting, and strict mode. So we're going to touch on bits of every topic. By the end of this whole tutorial, you're supposed to know the whole concept about JavaScript. So I'm going to take you through the polymorphism. Just as the name sounds, polymorphism. Poly means many. Morphism means forms. So polymorphism is one of the object-oriented programming feature that allows us to perform single action in different ways. Let us understand the concept of polymorphism in JavaScript with a real-time example. Consider a person can have different characteristics at the same time as the father, a husband, an employee, a son, and so on. So the same person has different behaviors in different situations. Here's an example where a child class object involves the parent class method. I'll show you the diagrams later on, but I hope you get the concept of polymorphism. Data inheritance. Data inheritance is another feature of object-oriented programming. Inheritance in Java is referred to the ability where child class inherits and acquires all the properties and behaviors from parent class. In object-oriented programming, inheritance is used to code reusability within a JavaScript program. A child inherits the properties from its parents. A similar concept is followed in JavaScript, where we have two classes parent, the upper base and the child class. Also the derived class. A class which inherits properties is known as child class, whereas a class whose properties are inherited is known as parent class. Yeah. So I'm going to touch on the bits on inheritance. So from inheritance, we're going to talk about data encapsulations. And it's another feature of object-oriented programming. Encapsulation in Java is a mechanism of wrapping variables and methods together as a single unit. What do I mean by that? Encapsulation is in encapsulations, the variables of a class with the hidden units from one another and can be accessed only through the method of different class. Thereof, it is also known as data hiding. Encapsulation can be achieved by using access modifiers. So your class will be saved from unauthorized access by others and will be simple to maintain. Yeah, we can create fully encapsulated class by making variables private, providing getters and setters method for the access of the variable. There are two methods to achieve an encapsulation in JavaScript: by using setters method to get the data and methods to receive the data. By using variable, the variable keyword to make data membership primitive. This can give you different permissions that include write-only access, read-only access. The write-only access allows you to only change the values of particular data members so that we can use setter method. Whereas reader-only access in read-only cannot be changed. It cannot change the value of data member of that method. Another JavaScript structure that we're going to discuss about is the Boolean. Boolean represents one of the two values, true or false. Very often in programming, we will need a data type that can only have one of the two values, like yes or no, or no, of truth or false. Those are Booleans. And they are data types that can be declared when you're refuting or when you're pausing. For this JavaScript as a data types, it can only take venture true or false. Normally, JavaScript Boolean is primitive value created from literals. So by now you should know different primitive data types. Strings are primitive data types. Integers, float numbers, those are primitive data types. And there are also other types of data types that is called derived or preferenced data types. Mostly they're covered in object-oriented programming languages such as Java. So from there I'm sure when you can do it as such, you can touch on assignment on the same, and I'm sure you're going to understand the difference between the two. So with further ado, we're going to cover another topic about Java objects, JavaScript objects. Well, from now I can say JavaScript is an object-oriented programming language. A programming language can be called object-oriented if it provides 4 basic capabilities to developer. 1. Data encapsulation. The capacity to store related information, whether data, methods, together in an object. So methods are the same as functions in an object. That can be an object-oriented programming. Aggregation, the capacity to store one object inside another object. So you can put an object inside another object. For instance, data inheritance. When you want to install data about one structure, about another structure, you can transfer that data from that object to another object. That is what we are referring as aggregation. Another point that we're going to cover is inheritance. Inheritance is the capability of class to rely upon another class for some of its properties and methods. Polymorphism, the capacity to write one function or method that works in a variety of different ways. Objects are composed of attributes. If an attribute contains a function, it is considered to be a method of the object. Otherwise, the attribute is considered a property. JavaScript object is an entity having state behavior, rather properties or methods, for example, or functions for car, pen, bike, chair, glass, keyboard, monitors, etc. JavaScript is object-based language, not object-oriented language, but object-based language. Everything is an object in JavaScript. JavaScript is a template-based, not class-based. You get what I mean? It's template-based, not because it's a scripting language, not a class-based. And a class is an instance of an object, whereas the object is a blueprint of a class. So with time and more practice, we'll understand how the concepts differ from each other. There are different ways to create new objects. Define and create a single object using object literals. Define and create a single object with keyword new. When you're using the keyword new, you're using it to instantiate an object, an existing object. So declaration of an object while using new, you're going to instantiate that object. Define an object constructor and then create object of the constructor type. JavaScript object by object literal. Syntax of creating objects using object literal is given below. As you can see, properties values is operated by colon. JavaScript object using new keyword. The syntax of creating object directly is given below. Here is a new keyword used in creating object. JavaScript constructors. The constructors, constructors, you need constructors to create function with arguments. Each argument value can be assigned in the different object by using the keyword. This keyword refers to the current object. Adding a method to a constructor. We can define method in JavaScript object, but before defining methods, we need to add properties in the function with the same name as method. Methods are functions stored as object properties. You can access an object method with the following syntax. I'm going to post the syntax for you, and you can also access it in the GitHub. You can get the whole syntax, you can get the whole formation, and you're going to put into practice. So this is just the beginning of the whole concept of JavaScript. So from this, we will be using this to make references where we will be stuck. But it's according to how your brains will process the information. If you're so snappy to get the information, well and good. The advantage is on your side. String object. Normally strings are created as primitives. Yes, as earlier we talked about primitive and non-primitive data types, or derived or even referenced data types. So strings are primitive data types. But strings can also be created as objects using new keyword var. Using keyword var, you can store the data. Var, remember, var is a variable, and variables are used to store data. So when you put it in, like when you put the double quotes, that you're creating a string, and a string is an object with more than one character. Object numbers. Normally numbers are created as primitives. Numbers come in handy. You have float numbers and integer numbers. Integer numbers are whole numbers, while float numbers, they're numbers with decimal points. And there's another data type, more than 2 decimal points. That's a float number. Boolean objects. Normally booleans are created as primitive as well, but booleans can also be created as object using keyword. New boolean. Declaration of the keyword. With further ado, let us move to another subtopic. We're going to talk about const. JavaScript const keyword is used to define constant variable that cannot change once the value is set. So when you declare a value in a const state, you cannot change the value of that variable. You can't use that variable again in your function, in your method, in your code again. You have rather, when you're declaring it, you have to declare it as a method, at the same method that you just declared it as the const. The value of const can't be changed to do reassigned, or it can't be redeclared. The scope of const is block scoped. It means it cannot be accessed from outside the block. Yes. So it's a short code. Rather, it's called within a function. You can't call it outside the function. So when you want to call a const function, const variable, you have to call it within. You have to call it within the block. Variables defined with const cannot be redeclared. Variables defined within const cannot be reassigned. Variable defined with const have block scope. Yes. Now you get the difference. Let us put the difference between the const and let. When declaring a variable using the var keyword, the scope of the variable is either global or local. If you declare a variable outside a function, the scope of the variable is a global. When you declare a variable inside a function, the scope of the variable is local. JS provides a new way of declaring a variable by using the let keyword. The let keyword is similar to the var keyword, except that those variables are blocked scope. The let keyword is used to declare variables in in JS. The var keyword can also be used to declare variables, but the key difference between them lies in the scope. Var is function scope, while let is blocked scope. Yeah. Let me show you an example of variable scope. Like variables can be thought of as named containers. You can place data into these containers and then refer the data simply by naming the container. Before you use a variable, you need to declare it. Yeah. And declaring a variable comes when you can place data into those containers and then revert the data simply by naming the container. Thank you so much. That is for today. And we're going to cover more about the topic. Now, the next topic that we're going to cover, we're going to talk about data types. We'll talk about the if-else statement, if statement, else statement, switch cases, loops, functions, strings. So, if you want to catch up on the next topic, please subscribe and click on the notification bell as we grow our JavaScript programming journey. Have a good one.